So I published a book on dating anxiety, one of my specialties as a psychologist. It took me 20 years of research and application and writing, and my book was doing pretty well. But then one day, I started getting messages.
Have you been on Amazon?
Someone may have ripped off your book.
Who is Sarah C. Peltz?
Her book looks a lot the same as yours.
Let's just say somebody did a remix of your book.
She's a scammer and a robot.
I could see why people thought I was getting ripped off. But in my job, I know the dangers of jumping to negative conclusions. And what if it's not AI? What if this is a bold new voice in my small niche? And by small, I mean tiny. To put it in context, when you type dating anxiety into Amazon, I'm the guy that shows up. Many people get social anxiety around dating, but there are very few books to help us. That's why I wrote mine in the first place. So what if Sarah C. Peltz, professional psychologist, could be my teammate, helping the world to get over their dating anxiety? The Scottie Pippen to my Michael Jordan, or at least a Luke Longley. That'd be a dream. And that's when I discovered something upsetting. Sarah's book has no reviews. Wow. Imagine spending what I have to assume was many years working on this, and then no one noticed. Reviews are super important for authors. We want to know if our work is helping. And they're also super important for readers. How is anyone going to know what this book is like with no reviews? What if it's a hidden masterpiece that'll change the field with novel insights, relevant research, clear techniques, gripping stories? With no reviews, it's easy for those skeptics to assume this is just shallow AI garbage. So I decided I can write Sarah's first review. And I can be honest, it feels good to help someone, right? Okay, let's take a look at this thing. Criteria 1, the outside. Look at these two books. Can you spot the problem here? Yeah, our titles are so similar that Sarah's loyal audience might get confused and buy my book. Imagine the disappointment. The descriptions are also similar. This is mine, and this is hers. Similar, but with a telling difference. Sarah chooses not to use the words genuine and authentic. I don't know why, for some reason, maybe those words are less important to her. Okay, cover. Sarah chose to use faces. Smart move, Sarah. Research tells us people love to look at faces. There's even a part of the brain that's basically dedicated to just that. And she shows exactly what great outcomes we can expect if we read her book. Have a look, what do you see here? I see people without fear going dating. And I think you'll agree that connection certainly looks established, or if not, like, probably will be very soon. Unlike my book, there's no back cover, so we don't get a picture of the author's face. Maybe she's socially anxious, or maybe it's just because Sarah has kept things minimal. My book is 338 pages, and Sarah's is a lean 81. But I think she might be onto something. Let's be honest, reading is really annoying, and Sarah doesn't force us to do much of it. And unlike me, she doesn't waste time patting herself on the back with endorsements from respected psychological colleagues. One problem though, for my book, the print edition is the most popular, and the audiobook with me narrating is my personal favorite. But Sarah only has a Kindle version, potentially pushing away a lot of people she could help. By the way, if you want to do an audiobook, I know someone with very relevant experience who could narrate it, as long as you're okay with a blurry Australian accent. Okay, but all this is superficial. As we all know, what really matters is what's on the inside, the contents. Criteria 2, the contents. Let's take a look inside. You might be wondering, how does Sarah cut this dense topic down to just 81 pages? Well, let me tell you, she uses some unusual methods. Method 1, no science or research. I think you'll agree, a bold strategy for a psychology book. Let's see if it pays off. No. From my reviews, I know people consistently value it when we reference published research studies. But hey, maybe she's targeting a reader who finds science boring. Method 2, very little in the way of treatment techniques or practical advice. While there are plenty of references to the existence of techniques, we never really find out how to use them. Instead, what we get is chapter after chapter of vague paragraphs suggesting maybe we should work on self-compassion, self-care, and find nurturing environments. But I have to give Sarah credit where it's due. There is one place where she does get into sudden, unexpected detail. Preparing for the date. I learned helpful concepts here, like wearing spotless pressed clothing, brushing my teeth, and writing a list of conversation topics in advance, based on gathering information from looking at my date's social media accounts and talking to their friends. Wow, It's almost as though preparing for a date takes more research than writing a book. I'm sure you're thinking, yeah buddy, unlike you, she cut out all the nerdy stuff to focus entirely on inspirational stories of transformation. That's a solid strategy. As humans, we learn largely through story, and people really like this. Okay, but here's where it gets really perplexing. Sarah has no stories, not about herself or clinical examples of others. Why not, Sarah? Writing is boring and it's hard to learn without narratives. But Sarah does have one story, actually. The book opens with the tale of Emily, who has a heart as warm as the summer sun. She has crippling social anxiety. But after relatively little effort, she downloads a dating app, immediately gets tons of texts, and forms satisfying relationships. And obviously, then builds her own community of like-minded individuals. Well, that seemed surprisingly easy. This young lady conquered her intense dating anxiety so efficiently, I thought she should write a book. And then it hit me, what if she already did? Maybe this wasn't a clearly made up story of effortless psychological healing. Maybe instead, this was secretly Sarah's backstory of how she came to care so much about this topic. I reveal a lot of myself in my book, and my often embarrassing stories of what I went through to get here. Like, what happens if you invite someone on a date and don't talk to them? What happens if you spend a month deliberately seeking out romantic rejection? Or if you change your eye contact patterns? But this got me thinking. I realized I knew essentially nothing about Sarah C. Peltz. The more I read, the more intrigued I became. After all, who creates a self-help book with no self and no help? Before I could write a review, I knew I had to find out. It's time to go behind the book. So I searched the internet for information. No social media, good choice, very healthy. But there was no Psychology Today profile, no clinic site. I mean, she's probably fully booked. There was no licensing information. In fact, there was basically no web presence at all. So I had nothing to go on. I was tormented though by the need to know. Who are you, Sarah?
Wait, you think she's real?
I'm a psychologist, and it was still driving me insane. But then I had a breakthrough. I noticed something on her Amazon author page, and everything started to make sense. Sarah didn't only publish a book about dating anxiety. It turns out she's published many books in a short span of time. 11 books in a 4-month period last year. 11 books, with topics ranging all the way from allergic rhinitis to eczema, vegetarian cooking, mastering thinking, binge eating, and even avoiding death. And it turns out that on top of being a professional psychologist, she's also a world-renowned nutritionist. And that's when I figured it out. Here is my current scientific hypothesis. Sarah has gained mastery in thinking, and she is physically fueled to maximum effectiveness with vegetarian air fryer food. This prevents any interference from rhinitis, eczema, and, death. She's not an AI, she's just a high-performing, immortal vegetarian. And we know they can totally crank out books. Even a book of 1,500 diabetic air fryer recipes. That book alone would take 10 years for a regular person. But this extreme performance comes at a cost. I think Sarah was so focused on her dietary work that her exceptionally healthy heart just wasn't really in it when it got to writing her dating anxiety book. In a sense, it's all very on brand, because this is kind of like a psychology book, but on a diet. Review. So with this insight, I sat down to write Sarah's first ever Amazon review. Sarah, I'm happy to be the first person to offer you a review. Are you a highly productive but distracted world-renowned nutritionist, vegetarian, professional psychologist? Or are you the lazy AI book scammer my friends believe? I want to trust you, but you remain an intriguing enigma. I feel like you've kept me at such a distance that even after all this time together, I feel like I don't know you. Incidentally, I also don't know anything about dating anxiety from reading this book. The information wasn't factually incorrect, it just wasn't good. Dating anxiety is a serious topic that affects a lot of people, and you've missed an opportunity to contribute. So, I wish you had taken the contents of my book, not just the title and description. I can send you my book if that would help. Dr. Thomas Smithyman, author of Dating Without Fear, Overcome Social Anxiety and Connect. If you want to actually improve your social anxiety in dating, then go check it out.
Who is Sarah C. Pells?
Need to get over to the book section, look up that name.
Very similar title. It's just such a weird thing.
Believe me, I saw it. I'm gonna bring it up to him.
That is crazy that somebody can do that.
First they start cloning the books, then they start cloning you.
If you don't do something about it, you can pretty much forget that Billy Joel box set we talked about.